It's going now. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Joe slowly approached the podium and turned. As he faced the audience of over 100 people, business people, students, graduates, community members, he froze. He was nervous. Joe's first slide had 2 logos on it. He did not explain either logo. His next slide was even worse. It had light green lettering on a white background. And that was his title slide. Then he started reading. 15-point font. He read, and he read, and he read to the audience. They could read along, but actually they couldn't because it was too small. Another slide later, he was still reading. And this time he was reading from a mix of different size fonts, hyperlinks, and a photograph with a guy stuffing envelopes on it. What did this photograph have to do with the slide he was talking about? This went on for 9 painful minutes. At the end of the talk, the guy next to me said, "Hey, Erik, I don't get it." And that's how we all felt. Poor Joe. So we've either heard the story before, or we've witnessed a version of it ourselves in another situation. What would Joe do, or what could Joe do with these slides? Well, I'll tell you. He could follow 3 simple slide guidelines. And today I'll provide you a little bit about these 3 guidelines. And they're basically general principles for making PowerPoint slides or any other slides easy to use and easy to understand. And hopefully you'll remember them so that next time you do a slide presentation, you can improve your slides as well. We'll also talk a little bit about what Joe could do to improve his slides. So as an overview, the slides guidelines are 1, which is 1 slide, 1 purpose. 2, color and contrast. And 3 is what I call the text to graphics balance. So first of all, powerful purposes are powerful. So make sure you know the power and the purpose of your presentation before you even start the presentation itself. More importantly, remember 1 slide, 1 purpose. That is, every slide you have must have a single purpose. That way you'll enable your audience to understand and listen to what you're talking about, and you won't confuse them. If you find that you're having more than 1 purpose for that slide, then just go ahead and create another slide and make it simple to follow. So for Joe, back to his first slide, he had 2 logos. What could he do? Well, introduce the first logo, and then introduce the second logo in a second slide. I found out later why he had 2 logos. It's because he had a company and then another company. His presentation was about the 2 companies, but he didn't make it clear at the beginning that he has 2 separate companies and that they're related. If he had just done that with 2 simple separate slides, we could have understood that from the beginning, but he didn't even talk about the slide logos at all. So we can do the same thing with our slides. Just remember the 1 slide, 1 purpose idea. Secondly is color and contrast. And as you can imagine, slides must be easy to read, easy to understand. And how you can maximize that is maximize the contrast between, in this case, your text and your background color. The easiest example to understand is black and white. It's the best contrast you can get. Another example might be if you want a little color in there, maybe a dark blue on a light yellow, those kind of things. So you have some contrast between the 2 colors. So in general, this is best so you maximize your readability and understandability. You do the same thing with images, but the font is kind of easier to understand. So what did Joe use? He used light green on white. The contrast was quite poor. You could read it up close perhaps, but 100 feet away in the back, you could not read it. So, last one is text and graphics and making sure they're balanced. This is really 2 guidelines in 1. First is text. You want to use text sparingly. If you use bullets, you might have 3 or 4 bullets on a slide, no more, and each bullet should have maybe 2 or 3 words. That's sort of a good guideline overall. And then you want to balance that with a good image here and there. Maybe not every slide, but if you have an image that you're going to use, make sure it supports the purpose of that slide. So back to Joe. He had this image I told you about. Some guy stuffing envelopes, and that's what it looked like to me at least. I found it again later after talking to him. It was a picture of himself at a conference he had organized. So he was trying to showcase the fact that he had organized this conference. He wanted to talk about it. He actually won an award. But the picture was so meaningful to him that he didn't realize it would mean nothing to most of us in the audience who didn't know Joe and couldn't read it anyway, so it was so far away and small, couldn't see what it meant. So, I've talked about the 3 guidelines for Joe and for ourselves. Use these so you can remember how to give a good presentation to the folks that you're giving your presentation to. And remember the 3 guidelines. First, have one slide, one purpose. Color and contrast. And third, the text to graphics balance. And of course, as we all remember, make sure you practice as well. You'll then leave your audience saying, I get it. And they'll remember your presentation.